All right, we just got home, and I just wanted to fire off a couple of my instant takeaways. You saw, or at least I hope that you did, the rapid reaction that was posted in regards to Arch Manning. Before we unpack a little bit more of the game film, I just wanted to get a couple things off my chest first regarding my experience at the game, and just wanted to say actually thank you to Buckeye Nation, everybody at the shoe that I interacted with, wearing scarlet and gray, including ushers, fans, and otherwise, emergency team members, the just everybody employed in that facility. It was a hostile environment, but the interactions that I had with literally numerous people asking me about how my experience was, how I was treated, how I was respected, if I enjoyed the atmosphere, what I thought about the stadium, and how their environment stacked up to the other places and the other venues that I had been. I have nothing but the I have nothing but good things to say about that environment and everybody within it. So thank you to Buckeye Nation for treating me and my wife with class and making our experience even better than it otherwise already would have been. Secondly, actually finishing that thought. So there's a reason why I feel maybe a little bit more strongly than I otherwise would have, that customer service there at the stadium was incredibly courteous. Our tickets, we didn't know, were kind of tucked underneath. I think it was the B level, and it almost it would, those who are familiar with that stadium would probably understand if I comped it to being almost enclosed in like a half open cave, right, where there's only one opening. So it's almost like we were kind of in a tunnel in our seats. My wife, 7 months pregnant, didn't couldn't she there's the oxygen and the airflow in there was less than ideal for her. Okay, so we just kindly requested to be accommodated if there was anything that could be done, even exchange for our tickets to go somewhere else where there's just more open air. That way she could breathe a little bit better. And they did not hesitate. Like I said, the ushers escorted us and pointed us in the right direction of where to go, and help was quickly sought, and the help that was quickly sought quickly delivered on making things right. And so I just wanted to say once again a sincere thank you. Now my second thank you goes to those of you in burnt orange and white, the friendly faces, if you will, behind enemy lines there. The countless, I literally lost count of people who came by and were excited to meet me, which fans and family members of current players included. Okay, that was a humbling experience, and it was one not that I necessarily needed, because I already know that I'm right where I'm supposed to be, but it was further validation that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And you guys, literally countless of you, I lost track of how many people I saw that said something, either gave me a high five, gave me a hug, asked me a question, thanked me for what I do, or asked for a picture. That stuff, you guys are the reason why I do what I do, are the most exciting part about my job, and why I consider myself to be the luckiest person on this planet, alongside being a dad, but doing this stuff right here too. It was a truly humbling, and it was an experience that neither of us, my wife and I, will ever forget. Now to football. Arch Manning. We'll just play this here for those who haven't heard yet, just to make it easy. And once again, apologies. I told a couple of you that I spoke with. Speaking of some of those fans who approached me, I said, "Hey, just fair warning, just letting you guys know, if you see some of the production level dip, it's not because I'm falling off, or I'm getting lazy, or I'm getting complacent, or not taking it as seriously. It's just because I'm trying to deliver more information, and therefore the production level as far as editing goes, trying to make things cinematic and storytelling, it's not always going to be up to what you have come to know it to be in my recent past. And then my third child is almost here. Okay. So just things have to, sacrifices must be made in order for me to maintain my level of output. Okay. So hopefully you guys understand that. But here we go. The human element of sport, sports psychology, the premature anointing of the entire general public, fans, media alike, even amongst those who otherwise have zero interest in college football, ready to crown the king who's just simply not ready to be the king yet. That's a metaphor, by the way. But his time will come, and he'll learn from this, as the best in any craft that the world has ever seen always do. You always learn more lessons in the losses than you do in the wins. I believe that's the case with Arch Manning, and I believe that that's exactly why he's going to be just fine. This was a tough test when you have an entire offseason to sit on the pressure that the people put on him. And even despite him being as bad as even he is already willing to admit that he was today, Texas still had a chance to win, to beat the defending national champions. And I wouldn't be shocked if they have a chance to do it again. I'm going to say something that might sound crazy. We're gonna kind of go through this in rather quick fashion here, because as you saw in that video, I am wearing the same thing that I wore last night. And it's obviously being through an airport and traveling all day. It's time to change, shower, and get clean. The reason why I'm recording outside and not inside, my wife wants no part of these clothes being anywhere near anything that she has already cleaned or anything that's inside the house. All right, so she's ready for me to get these dang things and put it into the washer and dryer. So that's why I'm sitting outside right now. Now, elaborating just a bit on Arch. Okay, all off season long, he's the savior. He is the anointed one, the chosen one, the heir apparent. You know, to take over what appears to be potentially, we hope, we think, a rather dynastic level of like where this program is headed. Okay, the chosen one with regard to the first family of football, him coming from a long line of not just really good athletes, NFL football players, but Hall of Famers. You know, that's all well understood. Okay, all off season, all this talk, premature. The expectations grow amidst the public as a result of the media and the public both just chattering. And as I mentioned in that clip, people, many of which in my immediate family or friends or, you know, family friends, close ones, who otherwise don't really have an interest in Texas or just football at all, have an interest in Arch Manning because of the last name. Sports psychology is powerful. All right, I'm privy to that, and I have a different perspective on that than I believe most do because of my relationship to it, my experience in professional sports as an athlete. That was one of the things that I struggled with the most, was handling the mental side of the game. Not just the pressure of the moment, but staying disciplined and focused and doing all the little things around the clock that maximize your output and your ability. I have no concerns whatsoever about Arch Manning. You heard Steve Sarkisian. This is the epilogue. Do not close that book right now. So even Sark knows. Sark mentioned, if you listen to the press conference, the adjustments once Arch Manning was able to actually see what exactly Matt Patricia, which was part of my preview, what he did, what he was doing as far as his deployment. And we discussed matchup specific game plans. That's what the Patriot way was alongside Bill Belichick in their dynastic run. It worked with consummate professionals, guys that Bill Belichick identified as, you know, high IQ football players, fast processors, guys that could handle the work and would be in the film room enough to make sure that on a week-to-week basis they can change things built into their defensive scheme. That's what Matt Patricia is bringing. Would it work with 18 to 22-year-olds? That was one of the questions. But that was part of my keys to this game is Steve Sarkisian. It was key number 2. There's a very specific reason which ties into this whole sports psychology thing, why I mentioned Arch Manning second, not first. doing my part to not contribute to the overhype. He's a kid. He's a child in this sport at this level who has yet to manifest into the man, the grown man, the adult, the mature NFL ready processor and man under center, right? Okay, so when all this stuff builds, okay, there's two ends of the spectrum of sports psychology here. Okay, there's underprepared, overwhelmed, scared, timid, and hesitant. Those types of adjectives, right? I'm scared. That type of sports psychology that will cripple you. But in the same token, in the same breath, the opposite end of that spectrum, it's overconfident, overhyped, trying to do too much, overprepared, thinking too much about how good he wants to be. I believe that we saw instances of both of those. Arch was the victim to sports psychology on both ends of the spectrum yesterday because of an entire off season of overhype and over expectation. There was no world where he over delivered. There was a very real world, and one that we're going to continue to discuss here in just a second, where he delivered enough to beat the defending national champion on their turf amidst 105,000 people in game one of his official reign, his era as QB1 at Texas. Nobody questioned Texas's ability to go in there and have a chance to win that football game, not even Vegas. But here's where I want you to understand. So I'm just trying to press pause on the panic here, okay? Anybody with a clear eye or even a clear ear listening to Sark, the adjustments that he made, once he really got to see, okay, here's what they're doing now, Arch Manning is going to win right here as much as he ever will with his physical tool set. Okay, that's what's important. That's what I'm trying to get to. Sports psychology got him in game number one. That was too much. That hype, that buildup, all those expectations was too much for just about anybody. But Arch's processing and his understanding of the position, what comes with it, and also how to attack certain defenses because of who his family is, because of where he comes from, because of his preparation and his own work ethic. He possesses the ability to make those in-game adjustments, and that's what he did. And he did settle down. Texas outgained Ohio State by 133 yards. Texas, they were they had a little bit more juice in the running game. And all the metrics, with the exception of turnovers and fourth down stops, they pretty much they were up to the task, even despite Arch missing layups, multiples of them, balls in the dirt, balls over well overhead. That is sports psychology right there. That is an over amplification of your mental circuitry. Every fastball I'd throw when I come out of the bullpen and into the game, you get 8 warm-up pitches as a relief pitcher. The first one was almost always up in the zone. Why? Juice. It's this psychological response called norepinephrine. That is the adrenaline dump that you get whenever your body senses something, when you're the man in the arena and all eyes are on you. Right? Your brain really can't tell the difference between fear and excitement. They're very similar. It's just about it's your preparation and your ability to process those feelings and put them away that sort of helps you in those moments and aids you to overcome them, right? So preparation is key here. And Arch, as we know, is always going to be mentally prepared as much as anybody at that position, just because of where he comes from. He understands what is required. It's part of why the hype is what it is and why we're having this conversation. Okay. So nothing to worry about there. Now, let's talk about my keys and where I was wrong, where I maybe didn't forecast enough or give enough credit to. Key number one, what I got right and wrong. That's what we're doing here. Okay. Key number one was, can Texas stop the run with a light box, 6-man box? That way, that it would allow them to play a 2 high safety shell, just sit in more of a zone coverage with 2 high safeties and bracket more than just one pass catcher. And they're going to have at least 2 first round pass catchers. Carnell Tate's a first round pick. Jeremiah Smith, obviously. Okay. Then Brandon Ennis, captain caliber player, and then Max Clare, the tight end, like the most sought after tight end in the transfer portal this past year. Okay. You can bracket 2 of those guys if you can stop the run with 6. And Texas did that. They checked that box. Did Ohio State withhold some of their, they sort of capped their game plan and their offensive output, their play calling? Yes, absolutely, they did. They protected themselves. Ryan Day said that he wanted to make sure that they did everything that they possibly could to not lose this game. But Julian Sand was a cool customer. And he made almost all the right plays, never trying to do too much, but he took care of the football. He didn't turn it over. And Ohio State, what they did better than Texas, which I did not necessarily expect, was on short downs and distances and got to have it moments. Ohio State won. They were 4 for 5. Texas converted 1 4th down, but they got stopped on 4 of them. So that just goes to show you Ohio State was also playing coverage, trying to keep everything in front of them, trying to stop the run with 6. And they also did that. Texas averaged 5 yards per carry in this game, but they didn't convert on the short downs and distances. So what I got wrong was over not placing enough emphasis, even though I know better on, okay, Arch it's going to take him a little bit longer to settle in than maybe most. Or then let's just say that I gave him credit for. And I know better. But also too, I think I overemphasized Texas's interior physicality and dominance and the growth year over year with Cole Hudson replacing Jake Majors, who, as we know, Jake was really good in pass protection, really smart, felt like he played the position for half a decade, right? And also Hayden Connor, too, more so known for his pass pro than his interior downhill power. So Texas sort of adapting their scheme from a zone scheme to more of a gap heavy scheme, which is a little bit more emphasis on downhill, okay, people moving types. When you swap either Neto or Connor Stroh, who are both known for being physically dominant, and you also swap Cole Hudson at center alongside Neto or Connor at left guard, and then you also have DJ Campbell, you expect those 2 new additions alongside DJ to be a little bit better, especially when all the question marks that Ohio State had coming into this game about their depth at defensive tackle. But they held up and they checked out. They answered the bell when they had to. They were the better team, the more physical team on 4 plays that were the difference in this football game. So that's another thing that I want y'all to consider real quick. As bad as Arch looked in certain moments of that game, as unproductive as Texas was on 4th down, and as still we have plenty of questions in the red zone of Steve Sarkisian having answers for us and for himself and for his team. 4 times they got stopped and turned the football over on downs. Arch turned the football over once himself. That's 5. And Texas also had 5 penalties in that game for 60 yards, if memory serves. Ohio State had 2 for 15. That were two penalties that were accepted for 15 yards, a total of 15 yards. So they were the more disciplined football team as far as penalties are concerned. They didn't turn the football over. They won the turnover on downs, right? The fourth down, the short or goal to go situations. They were the better football team. They stepped up in the most significant matchups of the game and answered the test, even despite me over expecting Texas to have more, not just power on the interior of their offensive line than Ohio State possessed on their defensive line, but also the depth. But it didn't matter. And I think both teams sort of taking the air out of the football, trying to protect themselves and help their young quarterbacks sort of get acclimated and trying to just kind of let their defenses dictate the matchup, right? That was a disadvantage for Texas because it shortened the ball game. Those fourth, this is one of the most important things that I believe as like one of the outcomes. This right here is, in my opinion, is the most powerful statement I have aside from anything that's psychological relating to the quarterback. It's why Texas wasn't able to win this game. Why we saw Ohio State continuously be able to step up despite their depth, that even their fan base, their message boards, and I bet you if the coaches were honest about it, would have said, hey, we're not really sure. We're concerned. Our biggest concern may be our run defense. Obviously, with Caleb Downs patrolling the secondary over there, with I think they call him IGB, Davison Igbinosun, who, he's an NFL caliber corner. He's got a holding problem, but he knows, hey, I'm taking 15 over a touchdown any day of the week. And then Devin Sanchez, I think, is underappreciated, undervalued. But even if all of those things aren't true, you got Caleb Downs back there, and you got Matt Patricia, who's going to be one of the best in the business, is known for, alongside Bill Belichick, disguising coverages. Even despite all those things, Texas still had a chance to win this football game, right? But the point that I want to make is both teams having a run-first approach contributed to shrinking the football game, condensing it, which allowed Texas's, and I still believe this to be true. Maybe we'll see this again. We're gonna have a chance to see a good. There's a good possibility these two teams meet again, and I don't mean next year. I think we will see that bear out. But the game getting condensed was a disservice to Texas, who I believe has better, not just interior defensive tackle depth, but interior O-line power. I believe we would have seen Texas lean on Ohio State had there been more plays played in that game, had it been a little bit of a higher scoring affair, teams being able to stay on the field and throwing the football more incompletions, more times that the clock is stopping. Once again, extending the football game. Had it been extended later in that second half, when two of those huge fourth down stops occurred, I believe we see Texas convert. That's here. It's here and gone. All right. Credit to the more physical football team, Ohio State, and also the defending national champions. This is not to take anything away from them. I think these are the two most talented football teams in the country still. And if you would have told me, if you would have told anyone, and if you would have told Vegas that if Ohio State scored 14 points in this game, everybody, Vegas included, would have said Texas is going to win. You know why? Look at the point total. And I don't know exactly what it closed at, but I know that it was north of 45. You know what 14 plus 7 is? Less than half of that 45. I think it was actually 47 and a half, if I'm not mistaken. Do you know what's common across the country when two really talented teams match up against each other and two legitimate defenses? The defense almost always prevails. Any other game this season, and you guys hold me accountable for this, I'm going to say it right now. It's a bold take, a bold prediction. Texas holds their opponent to 14 points. They win in most accounts in significant fashion. But Vegas would have told you yesterday the same thing. They would have dominated Ohio State, won by 1 or 2 scores, had their defense held the most prolific wide receiver room in the country, pass catching core in the country, to 14 total points. And you know what? What Steve Sarkisian's thinking about? One of those touchdowns, it's a 0-0 score going into halftime. if not for a third down penalty when you had a pass rusher get a face mask call, a defensive face mask call on an offensive lineman. Colin Simmons got stuck. His hand, just in the heat of the moment, heat of battle, slides up on the offensive lineman. Helmet flies off. Easy 15 yards. Drive extends, and a battle-tested, really tough, and really well-coached football team capitalized in their stadium on their turf. That's what the good teams do, and they did. All right. I want to quickly acknowledge Trevor Gooseby. I was watching him specifically, and I had a really good conversation with his father, Mr. Michael Gooseby, after the game. But I just wanted to say thank you to not just Michael, but a salute to Trevor for playing his butt off yesterday. I specifically keyed in on him as much as I possibly could, and every time I saw him slide back or just get into his pass set, it's just like poetry, man. I'm really excited to watch his continued development and growth, and it was encouraging to see him perform very well on that stage as a first time really true starter, like the guy at left tackle, replacing a first round talent, the arguably the best player on Texas's roster last year, Kelvin Banks, a consummate pro who had 50 career starts in his tenure at Texas. And I talked to his dad. One of the things that really stood out to me about Trevor last year was a couple different times he was thrust into a really difficult situation, starting on both sides of the tackle or of the offensive line at both tackle positions, spot duty in the most hostile environment that Texas has participated in the Aggie Super Bowl of the century last year. When Kelvin Banks goes down, you wouldn't have otherwise known that it was a teenager, a freshman in the ball game, stepping in and filling in for him admirably. And then to do it again, to have his first official start against, I believe it was Georgia in the SEC title game at right tackle for Cam Williams. And then he starts. I may have that. I know he started against Georgia at least one of the games. I know he started against Clemson, and I know he started against Arizona State. And a lot of people believe that if he starts against Ohio State for a still hobbled Cam Williams, maybe that outcome is different last year in the CFP. Who knows? Grayson Littleton is another guy that I believe deserves a ton of credit. I watched two specific plays where he broke and ran with and was in tight coverage with the people's champ, the undoubted best receiver in the country, a first-round draft pick, a Terrell Owens literal starter kit, man. Just a kid. Unbelievable. Jeremiah Smith, just the way that he looks. He looks like, just built in a lab. Different. Grayson Littleton, true freshman, starting in the nickel, and knowing he's walking into that game against first-round caliber Carnell Tate, captain caliber Brandon Ennis, and lab caliber best receiver in the country, Jeremiah Smith. Admirable performance. And then the last thing that I want to say before I get out of here is the Jack Baumeister name drop that I mentioned on Twitter and in my preview on here before the game began. An absolute weapon. And that's going to be critical, especially for a defense like what we know Texas already is, what we got confirmed yesterday. It was 2 penalties and 1 50-yard bomb. That was 14 points for the defending national champions. 3 plays. And Texas very well could have had a shutout in their own right. They played well enough to win that football game, needless to say, regardless of how you spin it. But Jack Baumeister is going to be a weapon. And I dared to say or utter the name Michael Dixon, but I did it anyways because I trusted my sources and I trusted my gut. That right there is paramount. Not just yesterday, not just in the regular season, but in the postseason when your defense is going to be the difference. And teams are now much more frequently, you're not going to be giving up field position, short fields, Teams are going to have to go the distance, just like Ohio State did on numerous occasions. I think 3 different occasions they were starting their drives inside the 10. Huge, and I know I'm forgetting some names to shout out, but it's 30 minutes in and I need to get out of here. But Jack Bowmeister is going to be a significant contributor towards where we still firmly believe that this team is headed. All right. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure that you're subscribed. Don't if you like this, you got to help me out. I've done my part here. You got to do yours. Hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if you aren't already. Remember that prayer changes things and the war is already won. Talk to you soon. Welcome.